Welcome back to the Omni stage at Event Tech Live USA Canada 2021 and to our next session with the CEO at Hybrid Events Limited, Christopher Playdale, looking at event technology and its role in green events. Chris, welcome along to Event Tech Live today.
Oh, it's great to be here, James, and great to be back.
Yeah, fantastic. Good to see you again. I know this is a topic that I spotted straight away when I looked at the agenda in the run-up to the show. It's something that I think has possibly been forgotten with all this furore around virtual events and hybrid and all that sort of discussion. So I'm keen to hear what you've got to say today, Chris, and I'll be back with you a little bit later on with some questions.
Great, James. Thanks. So I'm going to start with the idea. When we went into lockdown, I, like many of you, saw the aviation industry freeze. Planes on tarmac, our skies were blue, there was no fuel traces in the sky. I thought surely virtual events will change the environmental impact of our industry. So I asked the question. The question has to start with, will virtual events have a positive impact on creating sustainable live events? After analysis, I've come to the conclusion, and I was advocating this last summer, that yes, of course it will. No, it actually will not. After running hybrid, and I will explain why I believe this. After running hybrid events, and that's a mixture of physical and virtual events running side by side simultaneously, what I discovered was I had two events. The two did not really interact with each other. They were two very separate events, so then developed different strategies. Also, what was incredible to me was to watch cities such as Beijing had the dirtiest air in the planet, and around that city. And during a lockdown, its air quality went to good, which was an amazing achievement. But then after unlocking, within 2 weeks, it went back to having the world's worst air quality. Also, yesterday, some stats came out which are very interesting to me. Carbon emissions, even though they fell dramatically, data has shown that it had very little impact during lockdown, and that the rise of, and very little impact on the rise of atmospheric concentrates of CO2 in our atmosphere. So even though planes have been grounded, the impact globally of CO2 emissions has been absolutely negligible. So I thought I'd break it down. Let's first of all start looking at our whole sector. And if you look at our whole sector, it breaks down into certain segments. So you've got the exhibition and trade shows. That's what 8%. Our corporate and meetings is the biggest chunk, 26%. Corporate hospitality, is 7%. Outdoor events is 8%. Music is only 8%. Sports, which I thought would be massive, is only 19% of our whole industry. And festivals and culture and other events, which include weddings, religious ceremonies and such. So if you start to break those down and you look at actually exhibitions and trade shows, we can't do this virtually. I mean, there are certain kind of like maybe employment shows and educational trade shows that you can, where it's information rather than a physical piece of machinery or a new piece of technology, something which actually needs to be showcased. We can't do that virtually. Sporting events have already got broadcasters. They broadcast licenses across the world. They're already set in their virtual kind of world. And gaming licenses, they've been doing this for years. Live music falls into that category as well. A festival, cultural events like theatre and things, they cannot be done via virtual events. Incentive travel, simply, it's travel. We can't do travel virtually. I mean, maybe one day, maybe when there's three-dimensional virtual reality and augmented reality all mixed together, we can all transport ourselves. Outdoor events, again, just do not work in a virtual kind of space. So it leaves us to concentrate on what did work and worked really well. I mean, you've heard so much great technology which has risen to the challenge of this pandemic, and it was conferences and meetings and weddings. I will say, actually, also, had a big impact during this pandemic. But an overview of our whole sector year on year. So this is our economic overview and our environmental impact. So our global net worth is $9 trillion. $9 trillion is what our industry is worth. And we've been growing 8% year on year for the past 3 years pre-pandemic. 2.6 million businesses are directly involved with the live event sector. Over 105 million full-time jobs, and I have no idea how many freelancers. I couldn't find that information. But what does that equate to in our environmental impact? It's over 4 billion tons of waste goes direct to landfill or is burned because of our industry. 828 billion litres of fossil fuel used year on year because of our industry. Over 3 billion tons of CO2 emitted every year. And that's not taking aviation into the equation. That is just through live event activation. And then there was a number which I had to go to a mathematician at a university to even know what the number meant, but it's a huge number of litres of water that we use. And water is one of the sustainable factors we have to start to get our heads into and thinking about. And over 124 million litres of food waste. This makes us the 5th biggest polluting sector globally. And I think it's well worth just taking it on board as organisers, technology suppliers. If you're involved in the event industry, we're the 5th largest polluting sector. So we have to start to bring sustainability and the environmental impact into our discussions, not just amongst ourselves, not just through the planning stages, but actually on the ground. So what technology will really make a difference? I'm going to say it's you. It starts with you, your consciousness. Are you awake to the environmental challenges that face our industry and the positive impact? The way you approach events, live events, can actually make a massive difference. But it starts with you being informed, being awake, being conscious, and having the confidence to actually bring this topic up when you are pitching or to clients that you've had for many, many years, or promoters who have been promoting for many years, actually bringing this topic up and bringing it up in a positive way and in a way that will not scare them off by cost. So I'm going to start with travel. Now, travel is something that's, fundamentally when you go to a conference or a meeting, you drive. Or you fly and you get a taxi. This tends to be how we work as an industry. But there are other parts of the industry. For example, in sporting events, supporters have been traveling via bus for as long as there's been sporting events. So it's not uncommon for us to do this. Car sharing apps are already out there for people who are traveling globally. For backpackers or for whatever reason, within cities, there are park and ride schemes available. This technology, if we can create it in a positive way, so we actually start to use some of this networking algorithm technology we've been supercharged during these virtual events, can we get some people who actually want to network with each other sharing a car ride or on the same bus? I just also thought that I would pop this in there. This is back in the 1940s. This was the future of travel, which was cars on railways. I just thought this was an interesting idea. It's something that actually, would make a massive difference. And then I thought I'd show you some of the most amazing train interiors, which are of a really high spec. You can make that part of the journey from different hubs where they all come together, and actually they start their event on the journey to the event. And you've also got in there the inside of a bus. I mean, it's a magnificently luxury item, and the bus itself is physically next to it is solar and battery powered. So this actually of moving people to and from venues, we can have hubs, from different major cities where it might take 8 hours to drive there, but they're in a luxury environment where they can rest, they can network. We can even give presentations simultaneously on different transport infrastructure that are coming to a single point of face-to-face events. And to top it all off, Airbus, is producing what's called their ZeroE Plane. This is a plane that actually uses solar and battery power to fly. So it is coming. Technology is coming, to help us with our transport. And it will be through events that these solutions come. So what can we do? That's with transportation. The next thing to look at, which costs us nothing, it costs us nothing as professionals to find this out, is your destination or where you're holding the event, its power grid. Is it fossil fueled? What is percentage fossil fueled and renewables? You can find this out. You don't need an expert like myself to come in and find this for you. You can find this out, and this can be part of your pitch. Now, if you're a venue and you happen to be in a venue where there is a greater fossil fuel usage and burning gas rather than maybe renewables, this will help you lobby, your local kind of energy firms to get more renewables. And again, this comes down to your consciousness, of time of year, where you go, where you hold your event. For example, if you hold in New York, if you go to New York in the winter or the summer, it's got heating and air conditioning. Las Vegas, has a lot of air conditioning. It's to be conscious, to be awake. You will pick a place where generally it is a nice temperature, a pleasant temperature. It doesn't need heating in the venue. It doesn't need air cooling. It's just a pleasant temperature. That makes a massive difference environmentally to the impact of the events. The food and beverage, big issue, very simple diagram. This is called double pyramid food environmental diagram. It's something your children probably have been brought back from school. It's a very simplification of the food we eat, but it generally shows that the foods that are good for us have the least impact on the planet. It's not an exact science, but it generally, red meats and cheeses and things like from dairy are quite high up. But as soon as you start to get to things that are grown and not fed to any animal that's grown and we eat it directly, it's low impact and it's good for us. So it comes to us as professionals to design a menu which takes this double pyramid into effect. It doesn't take much to say to somebody, rather than use beef, why don't we use a fish and a meat which is maybe further down that pyramid. Also, seasonal and local. What can we do for the local economy of where we're holding our events? We can look at what they're growing seasonally and what is local. And let's celebrate that. You don't need, in the US, to get your wine from France. The US has some of the best vineyards in the world. Why are we transporting that in? Why not get it locally? For an example, champagne uses 3.5 cups of sugar to make its bubbles, but there are natural fermentations in different other sparkling wines which can be used. Food waste strategy. It's something which we have to think about. We all know smaller portions, is a great idea. The reality in practice, in my experience, is I don't want to have a hungry delegate ever. I want my delegates to always have a full belly and be content. So there's going to be food waste. You can never kind of guarantee everything will be eaten. But what you can do is have a strategy. And the strategy, this is called a rocket composter. Rocket composters, remember that. They come, they're portable, they can be built into new stadia and new venues. And what it does, it takes all your food waste, and not just your food waste, it will take all your paper waste and you mix it up, and it's already got the fermentation, composting happening in it by the time it gets there. It works at the optimal time, and it creates compost which you can then put on plants. Maybe you've got a herb garden in your venue. Maybe your venue's growing local things. You can put it on your trees outside, and this compost is created within 2 weeks. It's incredible. It's incredible technology. You could even, like, if you have a festival, an outdoor festival, you could have rock and roll compost. You collect it all up, and you make this compost. And you got compostable kind of like packaging, compostable plates, compostable plastic, mixed with food, all put into these compost, and then you bag it up and you sell it as whatever the festival or the outdoor event brand, and you sell it to them as to put in their garden, and they can say, I've got rock and roll compost, in my garden at home. Water usage, I cannot stress this enough. This is a really contentious and big issue for us in the event industry. There is a shortage of water. And bottled water, tap water, going to certain venues, they don't want to drink the water because they've come from somewhere, they're worried, they've heard rumors about the water quality. There are simple things that you can do. You can get on display some of the greatest filters that are used to take horrid water in arid lands, in deserts and such, filter it, and you can drink it. You can have that on display. Another way is atmospheric water generators. These are portable. They can be built into venues. They come on a huge scale, and you can get them that they produce, and they bottle it all in the same place. They have to add certain salts and minerals into it to make it good for us, and they can bottle it all in one unit. It comes out in reusable bottles, and then it goes back in, and it washes them with the same water that's pulling in from the atmosphere, and it sends out the bottled water again. These are solutions, technology-driven solutions that are available right now. So again, I'm just trying to awaken in you, this technology is there and available for us to use in our event thinking. Reusable, not recycling. Now, I love a stat, as anyone does, and I love an award ceremony. So I was thrilled to know that there was such a thing as the Stat of the Year award. Now, the Stat of the Year award back in 2017, going back a few years, so there has been some improvement on this, was that of all the plastics that could be recyclable, 95 of them never make it to a recyclable plant. So that's only 5% make it there. Once it gets there, of that 5%, 95 of it cannot be recycled because it's been cross-contaminated with another plastic or a label stuck on it with a glue. So that is a tiny proportion of plastic that is recyclable. Recycling does not work. We need reusable. And I really want to drum that in. It just does not work. And I was one of the first advocates, and I was all about recycling, and I got a recycling system on the beach volleyball global tour for FIBA, and I thought I was doing a great thing in 2007. I now revisit that, and I now am more educated, and the science has moved on, technology and observation has moved on. And I'm showing you an event there which actually has all in-house equipment. Everything is in-house. Everything on the table is a glass that can be washed and reused. The AV has not been transported in. It was already in-house. A few little bits and pieces came in, but on the whole, it was already there. And I've also shown you a picture of how packaging for food, it comes in crates which are reusable, not plastic covered. Audio-visual consciousness, becoming conscious of our audio-visual industry and starting to challenge them, the suppliers. I mean, our suppliers are great, and their innovation and how we use it creatively is awesome. But we have to kind of look at, there are 2,250 AV suppliers in the US. That's what I can find. And they hold, on average, it's a total average across the board, 165,000 metric tons of e-equipment each. E-equipment, it means electronic equipment that it somehow is connected to electronic source. The average lifespan of every electrical piece of equipment held by an AV supplier, an audiovisual supplier, is 6 years. And so it means that every 6 years that they create 54,000 tons of e-waste, which is created. And that's best case scenario if they can recycle a third of their electrical waste, which in the US, it's not happening. They're doing it in a few countries, but on the whole, it's not happening. It's hard to recycle a lighting desk. It's really hard to recycle an LED screen, or it's actually almost impossible. It's to recycle that. So with your AV suppliers, you're asking, what technologies have they got? Can they repair them? What's the lifespan of the technology that they're offering you? I'll give you a great example. An example was when we all changed from HD cameras to 4K. I mean, the industry basically trashed perfectly good cameras, perfectly good projectors, perfectly good LED screens, all got trashed, got put in warehouses, and because everybody's like, well, I spent loads of money on all this equipment, but now it was 4K. Everybody wanted 4K, and they're trying to get it to 8K. That kind of technology advancement actually for the environment is bad. Now we can change that as event planners, organizers, designers. We can change that by asking the AV suppliers, how long does their electronic equipment last? Do they repair them, or do they just get another laptop or another screen or another projector or another sound system? Oops, I lost my little clicker here. Hold on. So the other thing that, especially this generation, I dislike branding a generation, but Generation Z is a generation who were born into smartphones. So they've used them forever. It is power in their hand. Now, something that's interesting, that I find very interesting, is that the fastest growing sector in our industry is e-events. E-gaming events have grown faster than anything else, and they have become so large, and there are gamers who come to watch other gamers play a game which they then watch on their screen. So the challenge is, can we, Steve, I will wrap up. So the challenge to us is, can we utilize this technology to maybe not having an LED screen that they watch, but we can transmit it onto this device, so they can watch it and sit there and still be part of a collective experience. Can we create that? During this period, we've shown how inventive and innovative we've been with these devices. So just making sustainability part of your pitch. Your destination, where are you going? How far are you traveling? How you get in there? The venue, is the venue pulling power from which kind of electric grid? The time of year you go there when it's a tempered temperature. You don't go when it's cold or it's hot. Transportation, how you get there, think about that. Think about how you can start to engage your audience as they come to the event. Food waste, have a strategy. Water usage, have a strategy. A simple thing to ask a venue, especially if we're doing conferences, can I have rooms with showers, not baths? Simple. You start asking the question, the venues will readapt. Reuse, not recycle. Compostable. Composting is a massive, massive plus for us. Being AV, audio-visual conscious, and you really utilizing the tech that every individual carries to their event, no matter, they just carry this to their event. Can we utilize that at a face-to-face event to maximize the impact and to not bring so much tech on site? And with that, I will leave you within all of our aspects of events, the word sustainability has to be at the forefront when we start to engage with a client, plan a tour, hold a sporting event, whatever activation you're doing, sustainability has to be part of that conversation. Thank you. Well, thanks very much for being here. James is in another session. He's going to come over and he's going to take some Q&As. Please challenge me. I'm a pool of knowledge. Drink from me.
Chris, I'm back in with you. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm not getting you at the moment, Chris, but I can see that you reacted to that, so you can obviously hear me loud and clear. I've got some questions here that have come in on Glisser during your session. I've just been facilitating some Q&A actually on our main stage as well, so forgive me that I've not been with you the whole time. I'm going to dive back in and cover some of these questions if that's okay.
Of course.
Fantastic. Right, let's go from here. Sustainability was a box to tick for some events for a period of time, with audiences clearly stating that they will likely attend fewer events in future. Is there more pressure than ever for organisers to adopt and deliver the right green message as part of their marketing strategy?
I think if you don't, then you will be left behind. There is not just for the clients. Every industry is under pressure right now to have a sustainability practice, best of practice. In our industry, we use the ISO 2012-1, which is an event sustainability management system, which you can buy for $158. It's not great, it's not perfect, and it is a tick box exercise. But if you take those points that I've covered and you bring them into the conversation from the beginning of your pitch, you bring something that your competitor doesn't. That has got to be a great thing. And you don't need an expert like myself to come on board to do this. I'm giving you this information freely so that you can go and win business on the back of doing a little bit of research. It takes, a few hours.
Absolutely. And we'll fire through these last few questions because we're coming up on the end of time, Chris, but let's try and squeeze these in. What would be your top priorities in destination venue selection? Could you list 3 things that straight away you'd say, bang, bang, bang? Those are the priorities.
Okay, well, the first thing is how far do people have to travel to get there? And the second thing would be the energy grid. Is it fossil fuels or is it renewables? What's the balance? And the third thing that I would look at is its water pool in that area. How strained is it with the other industries? So, for example, everybody knows it in Los Angeles, it has a real drought situation going on. Those would be the top 3.
Fantastic. And finally, let's try and squeeze one more quick. In fact, we've got two more. Let's fire some quick answers on these. Any green competition apps or resources, both for in-person and if they were at home, i.e. virtual audiences, maybe they could still contribute their green actions?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the hardest things is to find where things come from, especially electronics. So if you can buy things that are repairable, rather than I need a new one. And this is happening with white goods and coming into law in many countries around the world. The second thing that you can do personally is take your own reusable bottle with you to an event. It sounds simple. And I would also just add this as well. If you're an event organizer, goodie bags, things of the past. Brilliant. You see, look at that. James is right on it, and you can brand it and it's reusable. It's a great thing. Goodie bags. Don't give people goodie bags. Give them an app so they got access to information, because information is worth more right now.
Absolutely. And people need to be aware, don't they, as organisers, that it's not just doing that in order to help with your green efficiency, with your carbon offset, but audiences probably don't want as many hands on things anymore because of what's happened in the last 12 months. There's going to be a hesitancy to actually get things like that. So if you've got somebody stood at the front of an expo hall handing out a swag bag, the vast majority of people may not choose to actually pick them up anymore, and it's a waste.
Absolutely. And the swag bag, everybody comes with a power in the hand, and they spend a lot of time on it. Utilize it. Augmented reality are great kind of innovations of how you can go around the event, collecting things, finding out things, and even getting things that you have selected that you will use, and not just taking it for the sake of taking it, or we're giving it away because our sponsors want you to give them something.
Absolutely. And that's for the organisers to work with the sponsors on coming up with good ways of engaging the audiences without having to do those. Let's cover one more question very, very quickly, Chris, before we have to wrap up. What are your thoughts on for carbon offset purchasing programs from vendors? Is it worth the hype?
No, it's not. Offsetting is an absolute myth to start with. The UN set this, and they got stakeholders. The stakeholders are the countries, so they've accommodated, heavy fossil fuel countries with countries that are really working towards renewables. And they found a middle ground, and they said, well, this is about right. It's nowhere near the actual offsetting quota it should be. If you really want to do this and you want to do offsetting, do it somewhere along the equator and show it at your event. You can film it. There's satellites where you can plant whole forests for very little money and show it at the event as a promo. And this event is being offset for real, and they can watch and see the plants and the trees going into the ground.
Absolutely. Chris, we've come to the end of the time, but it's a fascinating session, one that's absolutely relevant at the moment. Of organisers, I think it's fair to say, don't really know where they are. James? Yeah, please. Yeah, come on. Yeah, please.
Well, I would like to just leave in people's minds, if our little planet is an oasis, and surely it is worth us protecting that. And being event professionals, it's going to come through human coming together. That technology is going to find a solution to take off-world our heavy industries, our high impact industries, to off-world them. That will come. And we as event professionals have a responsibility. We're the 5th largest polluting industry to show the way, embracing the new technologies.
Absolutely. Chris, thanks so much for joining Event Tech Live. Christopher Pladel is the CEO at Hybrid Events Limited. We've been looking at event technology and its role in green events. I'm sorry that I couldn't be with you for the whole session. As I said, I was over on one of our other stages, but some great questions that have come in there and some even better answers from you, Chris. Thanks for being part of Event Tech Live. We'll see you soon.
Well, I wish you all well, and I hope you all got something and got the confidence to bring this up with your clients and your vendors and your suppliers, that you can actually have this conversation now.
Thanks, Chris.